Fantastic. How are you anyway?
Good, I think.
Big
How
question.
about you?
I'm alright. I'm too warm. England's very warm at the moment. We're having like a massive heat wave, so it's kind of ruining being as hairy as I am. Cool. We'll crack on then, if that's cool. And I'll do the same as I usually do, where I'll let you introduce yourself, because I struggle to introduce people. So who are you and what do you do? To be very
My
formal.
name is Crash Reynolds, and I make zines.
You do. That's a good answer. That's a solid answer. For anybody who doesn't know who's listening, I'm Graham, and I do this podcast.
Yeah.
If you don't know by now, though, I would be scared that if someone was watching this podcast and didn't know that I was the guy who did these podcasts, that would be, 100 and something episodes in, I'd be like, who's this guy? Why is he coming on here? What's he doing?
Well, what if they have I forget what it's called, like where you have face blindness? Maybe they wouldn't know.
That's true. That could be true. I do look
but
very
they could read
different.
the title. Never mind.
Yeah. I did kind of wonder, because I sat thinking to myself, I could introduce you. Obviously, I know you through like Instagram, Twitter, Reddit as Crash Reynolds, and I was like, I didn't know if you referred to yourself as Crash, because I was like, didn't know if that was like your online moniker and you keep yourself private and blah blah blah. So yeah,
a little bit of that. People in my real life also call me Crash. Not always, but it's one of those things where it's like, it had been my nickname for a while because of just like my online like gamer IDs.
Okay.
And it's one of those things where it's like, if you apply for a job, they can easily look you up online and see the stupid shit that you say. And so they can't, because until they meet me and already know that I'm a fucked up person, they can't just search for me.
I don't feel like anyone should go into a job interview thinking they're like not a fucked up person. Like, I feel like if you're going to sit someone down for a job interview, you should sit down and then you just sit there and go, I wonder how fucked up you are. Like, and like you take your fucked up level and you just compare it.
That's actually why, like, one of the main reasons why I agreed to work at the job I'm currently at. I went to the job interview, and some of the shit my boss said during the interview was like, yes, these are my people.
I've had a couple of friends like that who went for interviews, and I asked them how it went, and they said, well, we spent an hour talking about films and D&D for a while. And I was like, okay. He's like, yeah, I just want to work there now. And I was like, do you want to work there, or do you just want to be friends with the guy who interviewed you? It's just, you've made friends at an interview, but do you actually want that job? I'm not entirely sure. Cool. So, I mean, I guess my general question of wanting to get you on the podcast, I wanted to reach out across the seas and try and get different opinions, different folk. And I was trying to think how I knew of your work.
Reddit.
And it wasn't it? It was we like randomly messaged on Reddit.
Yeah, it was because after I made my very first zine, I did not know where to go to look for people that also made them. And so I was like, well, Reddit has a subreddit for everything. I should look there. And then I posted the image of my zine. Some people asked me to trade. I think it was only like 1 or 2 people asked me. And then a bunch of people said they would, but then like never responded to the message.
Yeah, that happens on Reddit quite a bit.
And then I like kept scrolling through all the zine posts until I saw like other people asking for trades. And I think that's how I came up with I asked you, I was like, oh, I saw you posted this like a year ago. Do you still trade that? Yeah, you and another guy named Chris Mitchell, who does like, I think he's only done 3 zines that I know of, but I found both of you on there.
I find Reddit is like a really interesting place for zines because you get a completely different audience, or I do at least, to what you get at like zine fairs.
Zine fairs or Instagram even.
Yeah, it's I think even kind of like a brief search of zine, you get a very different kind of opinion and view, and the types of zines which are made as well. I find incredibly interesting of what you get off Reddit compared to other places. I don't know if that's telling of like the subject matters.
It I think it might be part of like a demographic type thing as well, because a lot of the people on Instagram, they're already there because they're like artists, or they're not always, but they're usually younger. And then Reddit is like a slightly different group of people, so it's usually more like I've noticed like informational zines, or like photography zines, or it's like the very first zine someone's made kind of thing, or it's like a collaborative work, but like different from what you see on Instagram. I agree with you there.
I feel like Reddit, to me, I don't know, personally to me, like I know when I go to zine fairs, there is a lot of DIY and a lot of per zine at zine fairs, and I think like that's great, and people getting out their opinions and stuff like that. But I think with Reddit, you get
less per zines.
Yeah, it embodies a bit more of the DIY side. It's not the expressive side. It's the, oh no, I want to do a subject rather than maybe anything else. I mean, I think I've got about 3 library zines about by a librarian. I can't remember who made them, but it's like Confessions of a Librarian, and it goes into like
something Lois.
Something Lois.
It's from Australia.
Yes, it is from Australia. Yeah, and it's like those kinds of things. And I find those bits fascinating. But
all the bits of paper that she finds in the school library books that like it's like yeah, I actually have that somewhere. I just organized all these awkward boxes right there. I
mean, your room's a great advertise for Amazon.
Well, it's free boxes. I don't want to spend $30 for one of those stupid baskets to fit in those.
Why would you?
I have boxes.
Yeah,
right?
Free boxes.
I just have free boxes.
It's like when you see a wooden crate. It's like free wood, right, guys?
Yeah, I organized it by alphabet. She also does one called Soki.
Soki.
Yeah, it's about like crying, like being okay with crying in public.
That's so weird. You can hear me clearly, even though you're not at your desk. This is Graham. Please bring us zines. I don't even know where my zine bag is. You have a well-organized system. I literally have a tote bag full of zines. That's
just did it though.
We're living different lives.
Like the moment you asked me to do this, I was just like, okay, first things first, I need to dye my hair, clean my room, and organize my zines. I know it's L. Lois something.
I really don't even know where. I'm kind of concerned. I don't know where my bag of zines is now. It's probably downstairs. Probably.
How does the alphabet go?
Hiding away. Tucked away in the vast realm of zines. My room up here is just full of my zines, essentially, are the null point ones, which I curate. So it's just full of staples and black and white copies of zines fluttering about.
Probably stop doing this. I'm like, I know it's in here somewhere, but no longer can find it. I probably put it in a different letter.
Fine. But yeah, it's like it's strange to kind of see the different demographics which come from it. And I mean, like, so you mentioned like you did your first zine and you went on Reddit. It was like, I'll post this on Reddit. What made you make a zine? Like, how did you find zine? Out of curiosity. Yeah.
So in junior high, I actually failed my like grade 7 poetry unit.
Okay.
Which is weird for anyone who sees my like Instagram from like before I started making zines or anything, because mostly I started posting poetry, but I failed that. And then one summer, I was never interested in poetry because there's so many rules. It's like make it rhyme, A B A B, or A B C D C D E A B, or all this stupid stuff, and that's what I thought writing was. But then I read a book during my summer vacation called Hard Love by Ellen Whitlinger, I believe it is. And in it, the main character actually makes zines. So I found out about it. I think it was the summer between grade 8 and 9.
Okay. I was going to say you might have to do a transversion of that because I don't have those grade boundaries of how old you might have been.
Like, I probably would have been 12 or 13, probably 12. So I was really young, but I had read it, and the main character wrote poetry, and he put that poetry into zines. It was just like a perzine he posted. And I always thought that was cool. And like the moment I put the book down, I was like, I can write and not have rules.
Yeah.
And so I just started writing poetry after that. And then throughout that year, I kept writing poetry. And at the end of the year, I put it all together into a zine. And it was at like the very end of that school year. So my first year of high school, I had a bunch of printed copies that I'd like left in the library for people to take. And like, I knew about zines, but I never did anything else besides that until 2.5 years ago now, I think. And I was doing a bunch of poetry on Instagram, and someone invited me to submit to like a zine compilation that they were doing.
Okay.
And I was like, oh my God, right. Zines.
I forgot about those.
Those are a thing. And so I did that. And then for like months and months, I was like, I want to make a zine. I want to make something that I can express myself with, but also have like something that could help others.
Okay.
Because ever since I started writing poetry, I was always like, I wish I could publish the poetry so it could help like one other person who's going through a similar thing as me know that they're not alone.
Yeah. That's interesting. I mean, that's really like I came into zines quite late in life, essentially. Like I only knew about zines from the song by Harvey Danger, which is the Flagpole Theatre song, and he says, "I want to make zines and Rage Against Machines," and that was the only reference I'd ever heard to zine.
And you're like, "What does that mean?"
And I was like, "I don't know what that is. I'm a teenager. Let's go skateboard." Well, I don't even think I was a teenager at that point. I might have been like 12. I don't know how old that song is. But yeah, I kind of didn't know anything about it, and then I didn't do anything with it or around it because I hadn't heard of it. And then my friend Mel, who's Melody Clark on Instagram, she introduced me to zine fairs and kind of said, "Oh, I'm going to do the zine fair," and had a look. And then I looked into it and I was like, actually, I do know what all these things are because I've been involved with like punk scenes and counterculture and bits like that. I know what these are. I just didn't realize anyone had actually labeled them. I just always assumed these were just, they're just like pamphlets. They're just, they're mini comic books. That's all people are making. So when I get set out to make my first one, I was like, well, essentially, I don't really want to express myself. I want other people to express because it was like expression was never something which I found hard. So I was like, well, if I can just convince other people to express, then I'll be great. I can go off and do whatever. And it was only this year as well that I made my first perzine. and that was terrifying. Like, I'd spent
Yeah.
so long putting other people's work out there. I was like, oh, this one's actually got my name on it, and I don't really know if I'm comfortable with that yet.
Yeah, because it's like it's stuff that you wouldn't mind sharing with like someone that you're close friends with in like a conversation, but like if you go up to someone that you know, like someone you work with but aren't like super close with, and like the idea of handing them that zine, it's like this is too personal.
Yeah.
You're like, I don't know them well enough to tell them any of this.
That's why I'm so impressed. Like when you go to a zine fair and people are kind of handing out or selling zines, and I mean, you're giving away like a really personal part of your life, and they're going to have a different view of you based on what you hand them, because they don't have a chance to learn the rest of you, so to speak. So you're giving them this very specific part and saying, "Oh, this is part of me." You're like, "Oh, so this is part of you. This is what you do." So I always think it's quite strange. I think I usually, if I do buy a zine, I tend to buy like a couple or like a few, so I can get more of a view of that person than what I'm going to get in one single issue.
Yeah.
I don't know. I do find it quite strange. See, I mean, do you go to many zine fair events? Is that something which you have a lot of in your area?
No, not usually. There's might be like 1 or 2 a year.
Yeah.
But not many. Like the Broken Pencil, they usually do Canzine every year, but this year they didn't stop in my city, but the year before they did.
I went to I was going to say Toronto, but it's not the Ottawa one last year. I managed to squeeze my way into that.
Because you submitted to the awards, and then you had a table giving out the free zines.
I did, and I'm not saying that I planned my holiday around doing that, but I may have planned my holiday around that.
I wanted to plan a holiday around that, and by plan a holiday around that, have that be my holiday.
Yeah. Well, my view of it was I wanted to go to Canada anyway, and I was like, okay, well, me being me and not really ever being able to stop working on anything, I was like, well, if I go on holiday, surely I have to be productive whilst I'm on holiday. What's a way to be productive whilst on holiday? I should just go give my zines to people and then give them to Broken Pencil. Get my 50-50 review, which was lowered. It's strange being reviewed as well.
Yes.
I had a cheeky Google of you before, because you got to research your guests a little bit, and I noticed that you have quite a few kind of different people reviewing your zines or have reviewed your zines in the past. And I was kind of wondering like how you feel about that, like getting reviewed.
I think reviews for zines are really weird because you can either just like, as a review, it'll either be like a short summary of what the zine is and be like, oh, I really like this. Or if you like pick it apart, it's like you're really picking that apart. Or like, I don't know.
I think it's strange, like both of us kind of go into zine as like an expressive format, to take something which is so essentially raw and then put it in like a critical breakdown of, oh, so here's how the writing is in his, and here's how the wordplay is in this, and here's how this is. In a way, it kind of fascinates me to the point where I'm like, I should make a zine about zine reviews.
Yes.
Because it's one of those things that like you see so often. You're like, this is strange. You're approaching it like it's a novel, and you can't consume it in the same way.
Yeah. There was one review done of mine. I won't say who it was by, but it really bothered me. When I first read it, it actually made me really upset because I felt like they completely missed the point, and they also included a quote, but the quote was misquoted.
Oh no.
And I was like, but the word that they put in wrong like completely changed the meaning of what I had been saying. Okay. So it's just like you missed the point, you did it wrong, and I was just like heartbroken. But then like I looked up other reviews that person had also written. I was just like, oh, like this is actually a good review from them.
Right. Okay.
Because I was like, ooh, like
Compared.
compared to some of the other things he said, like he actually put thought behind what he wanted to say.
Okay.
I'm saying he, I
I
don't
mean,
know. I'm pretty sure, but I don't remember. I'm
that's
just
fair. Online reviews. I know. Yeah. I've kind of. So Null Points have been reviewed. I want to say 4 times in its tenure. Um, and I always find that fascinating as well because it's in a way like I don't think it's different to other zines, but it does
mm-hmm.
approach it in a different way because we try to remove the ownership essentially.
Yeah.
And it's sort of fun watching people try to figure out how to review it. Essentially, I don't know. Like,
I think with movies and books, you usually can critique the way it's done,
mm,
like the style, the skill, experience, like that's all there. But with zines, usually people review what it made them think or feel, which says
yeah,
nothing about the creator and all about you.
yeah. I think that's a fair way of looking at it. Like, I do think it's yeah. I don't know. Like, I mean, so when you've obviously got quite a large zine collection, or judging from the box behind you, you have quite quite a large zine collection. What do you go for? Like, what's your go-to zine
Um,
if you get a chance? Because I only tend to buy them at zine fairs as well. Like, I don't tend to
mm.
buy or order them unless it's like a trade online. I don't go out of my way to get zines.
I've gotten a few comic or art zines, but usually those tend to be like way more expensive because it's
Mm,
like an artist who's trying to make a living off that. It's like, yes, I would love to give you $20 for this like zine, but like I also don't have the money to spend $20 on every zine.
yeah.
Um, but usually I guess it'd be like per zines or mental health related or just like random bits. Some of them I haven't done it in a while because I've been trying to not spend money, but I'd go to pretty much through like all the zines that like were reasonably priced and
Mm,
didn't have like $17 shipping to Canada because
yeah.
usually if it's like someone in the US, they just let Etsy calculate the shipping and then it comes up with like a parcel pricing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Um,
part of my problem with trying to get anything from you guys over there. It's just like, oh, a lot of this is I know you won't. That's like £20 on top of it. I'm like, but it's like A5 paper. How are you sending
yeah,
this with like £20?
but it's because they especially if it's like someone who hasn't sold that much, they probably have only sold in the US. And usually when I see that, I'm like, hey, by the way, you can actually send this as letter mail. Usually it costs about this. And usually they just thank me. There's one guy who told me I was wrong, and then I sent him a screenshot of the information of like, well, because he told me he sent it in like a specific size of envelope. I'm like, well, your little zine that's this big doesn't need to be in an envelope this size. So if you
Yeah,
put it
well,
in a smaller envelope, you can actually save $10 on shipping. Funny
save
how
your
that
money on
works.
envelopes as well.
Yeah. Um, yeah, besides the one person, everyone else was like, oh, thanks. I didn't even know. And that's because Etsy just has the parcel pricing, not letter
Yeah,
mail.
I do. I
Um,
found it quite interesting seeing how people price zines differently.
yeah.
Especially, I mean, especially kind of UK to Canada. When I
Mm-hmm.
came over for Broken Pencil, I was surprised. If I go to a UK zine fair, regardless of size, usually I can come away with like maybe 5 or 6 zines and spend less than like $20. Like
Mm.
I could come away with 5 or 6, and when I went to Broken Pencil, every single one I saw
Was like
was
five to ten
yeah,
bucks.
$5 to $10, and I was like,
It,
this is strange in a way. Like
it it's really weird because one of the things is I've noticed is a lot of people will have it professionally printed and folded and turned into a booklet, and so that puts the cost up to like $3 to $6 for them to just have it printed
yeah.
because they want like a specific color or they just don't have a printer at home and they thought that would be easier. And because zines aren't as popular here as in the UK. There's not as many like printing services that do allow for that. So the ones that do are just so expensive. I've even looked into it too, and it's crazy expensive, and like that's the main reason I think.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's just.
I find that kind of cool. Like, say kind of cool. That's a weird choice of words there, Graham.
Interesting.
I find it interesting, intriguing. There's better words. There's more words here somewhere. I'm English. I can work around words. I find it interesting now that a lot of people do get their zines printed, assembled, collated professionally when the origin of it was a photocopier and a stapler. And I almost like, because I even have that conflict. Like so Null Point is printed. I assemble it myself, but it is printed. I go to a printer because I produce so many issues of it. And I'm like, it just removes the thing. It doesn't cost me much. I know the printers, so it's like cut rate price. And I almost feel like a charlatan at some zine fairs because I'm like, well, mine, I didn't hand print mine. I didn't print it at home. I haven't got like a laser printer.
But the thing is, initially, that's what people did. Not everyone just had a computer and printer at home. They would go to a photocopier and like put a piece of paper down as it was printing, like drag the paper to give it like cool wonky effects. Yeah. Like, if anything, that's more like what people initially did with zines.
I like the idea of it being kind of the antithesis of like a handmade zine. That I'm producing this mass-produced disposable item, which happens to be full of all this personal work. I was like, yeah, we're putting a lot of effort and work into this. So yes, but I could produce it like we produce, I don't know, toilets, just on a production line, guys, and we'll throw them into the world. I don't know if that adds value to people's work, whether it's like handmade and hand cut, or whether it's like not.
Photography zine, I kind of understand wanting to have it professionally done, because printing it at home on like just like an inkjet or even laserjet printer versus like having it actually put into a book form, like there's details that get missed and colors get changed, and they understand that. And I understand like some artists wanting to do that too, but if your zine ends up being like $15 or more, that's just a book at that point. It's no, like I'm sure, like, not to exclude them, like you can still call it a zine, you can still be a part of the community. It's just, it doesn't feel like the same base idea.
Yeah,
I guess
once you've kind of put that extra price onto it, it's because I think then as well you getting into that stage of where it's no longer accessible.
Yes.
To the community.
Yes, because not everyone. There's one that I've seen that I really, really am interested in, but it's like $30, and I'm like, but $30 plus the shipping of an actual physical book. It's like, I don't have $40 to buy this. Like, that's not something that's like anti mainstream or like easy to spread the information to everyone. It's like, you probably have 10 copies of this and no one's buying it because no one has that money.
Yeah. No one's picking it up. I mean, I that's kind of just mentioning there, like with it being kind of like essentially like an accessible medium, because that's how I think of zine, or I tend to think of zine, is it's just another medium. So it adds the context in the medium that you've done it, essentially. So the same as like doing a painting or anything like that, you're just choosing a different way to express yourself. And with it being essentially started as a very accessible art form, because you can just go home and you can just make one. If you price yourself out, you kind of completely losing that, I guess.
Yeah, I've been like having to like look at my expenses and then like look at what I'm selling things for. I constantly have to keep adjusting things, and it's like the weirdest thing to put a monetary value on your thoughts and feelings.
Yeah.
and like to decide what would someone be willing to pay for your thoughts and feelings.
Do you ever get anyone buy it and then instantly afterwards sit thinking, why were you willing to spend this? Like,
Some like there's been a few people who've bought like my whole collection of zines.
okay.
Um, and I have like over 55, I think, currently. And then they'll add in like you can either just get the zines or you can also get like stickers and art prints and like extra bits that I have on the side.
Yeah.
But it's over 100 Canadian dollars. So I don't know what that is in
Stickers
pounds.
ready.
But yeah. So,
Stickers.
but whenever they do that, I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Someone looked at this and was like, yes. Are they crazy? But like,
Just
I'm always
extremely
so,
relatable at that point, right?
yeah, I'm so thankful for all the people who do order things. But then when it gets past like a $20 order, I'm just like, oh my God. Like it bewilders me that someone thought my thoughts or feelings were worth that price tag.
Yeah. I have to stop myself kind of convincing people not to buy my work. It's like a real, like an honest to God problem. So it's like I'll make something and then show people it, and then be like, "Oh yeah, I really want one." I'm like, "Are you sure?" Like,
Yeah, do
I
you
get that I
really
put it
though?
online for sale, and that was a big jump. But are you really? Why do you want this? At the same,
Mm-hmm.
are you sure you feel this? Yeah,
Are you
it's quite a strange
sure?
one.
Do you want to have a week to think about this?
Yeah. I think that's in a way like when I was in Norfolk, I kind of removed that so I couldn't convince myself because it's free,
Mm-hmm.
You can't turn down free. Though the amount I
Mm-hmm.
have to convince people to take a free item is quite high. That's this. I end up with a bit of a patter whenever I do a stand. Oh, breaking things. Um, and I just kind of like end up going, yeah, no, it's free. Like, don't worry. There's no hidden charges, no cost expense here. You can just take one, and then you have to convince people because they get so scared that
I think
something might
it's
happen.
also if they're at like a zine fair, they also are like they know that you paid money to have it made, like
Mm-hmm.
some form of money for the paper or the ink or the staples, and you put time into folding them. And so I think it's more like they're scared of not showing their appreciation.
Right. I could see that. At the same time, I see it as a disposable object,
Yeah.
which is the problem. It's like a napkin with words on it. At least that's how I try to think about it.
I don't think it would clean off food from your face very well.
It might. I don't know. Never tried. Maybe that's the next challenge. Make one which you can clean food.
It doesn't absorb well, so I'd more spread it.
I could print it on like tissue paper though.
No, don't
It's
do
like I
that.
could take napkin. You can get printed napkins. Subway has loads of them. I could get printed napkins
But
and
I
do a
thought we were
zine.
talking about not doing that. We just spent like 20 minutes talking about not doing that. What are you talking about?
Some part of me really like. So when I made the person I made recently, I say I have to really catch myself because I saw it written before I saw it pronounced,
Zine.
and I say Zine because that's
It's
how it
okay.
reads. And I
Well,
kept
it's
getting told off
short
for it.
from magazine.
I know, but it's got an E on the end, so the I gets pronounced. So when I made the per zine, I set out to make the polar opposite of my previous zine.
Hmm.
So null points are really fairly mass produced. I see it as disposable. It's anonymous. Blah 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 blah. So when I made my per, I kind of got into it and went, okay, so I'm going to hand type this. I'm going to hand assemble it. It's going to be limited to a certain amount of issues. And I really kind of locked down these parts, which made it super pretentious.
Mm.
Um, which, I found quite fun. But it really made me now want to make like a corporate zine because part of me just, there's an edge of me which likes trolling communities of different parts of communities. And I do it with the art scene as well and poetry and everything like that. But I'm just like,
Mm-hmm.
what if we had like a really corporate zine? Like
I know what you
branded,
mean.
sponsored, has adverts.
I've also thought about doing that, but like because I don't know if you have them there, but here we have like different communities have like a newsletter that they mail out, and the inside of
Okay.
it, yeah, I've been keeping them so I could like find, cut, and paste stuff from it. Um, and like during like the first month of COVID being a thing,
Mhm.
it was like to whoever started planting trees in the little park, you're not allowed to do that. You can't just plant trees wherever you want. You have to like register them with the city so they know that they have to take care of those trees.
Amazing.
And it's funny because I kept passing by that street and being like, why are there so many holes here? It's because someone planted trees and then someone else came and dug them all up.
I love the fact that the trees have to be like regulation, but I also love that that's now a form of vandalism. Is planting a tree.
Someone was at home during quarantine and they were just like, you know what? Let's just plant some trees. Let's just like make this a
Yeah.
prettier neighborhood. And someone's like, how dare you? You need to regulate those.
I read a great thing, which was it was so you do you know about the Purge?
Yeah, like I
Or
haven't
like
watched them, but I know
the
of,
premise of
yeah.
it, yeah. And it was basically just like imagine being in the Purge, but you don't want to actually break the law for nefarious means.
Mm.
So instead, you want to start like an allotment without a permit, and you want to go paint a wall a color which you weren't allowed to paint a wall, or
Mm.
maybe start a community group. And it was just this long list of different things people were unable to do because they couldn't get the paperwork or couldn't afford it in one
Mm.
way or another. It's like you just have this whole like weird artisanal community pop up over one night of the purge while the other half of the country is killing themselves.
Yes,
I don't quite know.
I
But
also have random thoughts like that. So it's like I I've had this thought for a long time. Like, I don't know how to get the information out to the people who need to know, but essentially, where I live,
mhm.
if you put graffiti on a business's building, that business will get a letter from the city of Calgary saying that they have to paint over it and take care of it. Otherwise, they'll get fined.
Okay.
Because we have like a vandalism bylaw of some sort. Like, if you have graffiti on your building or your property, you'll get a notice like, hey, you have to take care of this. If you don't, you'll get fined because we're trying to not have graffiti everywhere.
Okay.
And I wish there is some way to let the people know who keep doing that, that it's like, you're not doing anything for anyone putting your graffiti here. If you want to put it to the man, put it on like government owned property, not
Yeah.
like a small business owner's property. Because that small business owner just has to go and
Yeah.
get like a bucket of paint and spend a weekend painting their like the side of their building. Whereas like if it's just like a bus stop or whatever, it's like that's the government and like taxpayers' dollars, but like it's not a specific person who has to
Yeah.
pay for it.
You're not harming like an individual, you're harming like a municipality. You're painting a weirdly dystopian picture of Calgary where you can't paint trees, you're not allowed to graffiti things.
But it's just like I really want to make like a hey, here's where you should put graffiti if you want to
Yeah.
have graffiti.
Well,
Like a how
that's
to graffiti scene.
I mean that's
How to stick it to the man actually.
yeah, I mean
Pleb.
that's kind of come out like recently. I mean, obviously there's been all the like the Black Lives Matter protests,
Mm,
and like obviously the increase in protesting is quite high.
mm,
And I kept seeing like these, they were kind of like tongue-in-cheek posts of how
mm,
to protest, and it was here's how to protest effectively, or here's how to do this, and it was like, oh, it'd be a real shame if people started making their protest board out of like pieces of plywood, which can also be used as shields. Or
mm,
it would be a real shame if you did this and it cut off the power to this area so the police couldn't contact each other. And it was this
mm.
really long list of like slightly anarchistic
Like
to
yeah,
be
it's not specifically saying it,
yeah,
but it definitely is implying it.
it's not encouraging that you go out and do this, but it's saying if
Mm.
you're going to go out and do this, you can do it effectively if you did it this way.
Well, it's not even saying that. It's saying it's too bad that no one's doing it this way because you
Really
shouldn't.
lucky. Yeah, I like that. I mean, it raises.
Mm.
I mean, I'd love a zine like that. I'd buy a zine like that. Like a little. It'd be like, almost like Oh, what is that book? There's a book in my mind, and I can't. I watched a whole documentary, and I should know the name of this. Oh, so you got the Anarchist Cookbook. I don't know if
Mm.
you know of the Anarchist
I've
Cookbook.
never looked through it, but I've seen it
No,
in
I
the
mean,
stores and stuff.
don't order a copy. You end up on a list. Um,
Well, it seems pointless to order,
Something
like to
which you can
spend
get as a
money on
PDF
an
online. Yeah.
anarchy.
Well, you got all those
But,
revolutionary T-shirts, don't you? Which
but that's what you want to do with the napkins. You want to have a corporate anarchy. Like, don't stick it to the man, but buy this highly produced book.
this book. Yeah. But no,
Buy this napkin.
I like the idea of like local anarchy zine, which is just kind of weirdly helpful, but also not helpful in any way, shape, or it's like you wouldn't end up on like an FBI list or something like that. You just end up on the local council's annoyance list. Like, have you met this person? No. What are they doing? They're telling people where to graffiti. Like, they're
Well,
telling them where
technically,
they
it'd
can
be
plant
telling
trees
them where
without people
not to
knowing.
graffiti.
Yes.
That's where I want to do.
Yes. All other places are accessible.
I actually saved because the thing was online
Mm-hmm.
on their online newsletter, and I saved it. The headline was, "Please don't plant trees on city property without city permission."
It just makes me really. It's like I don't know. It just makes me want to go plant like random herb gardens and just see what happens.
Given that we recently had a local community member plant some trees in the green space on such and such Ave on the dog park and on the boulevard, the city has provided the following key point. Trees and shrubs are regulated under the street bylaw under section 68 of 6. No owner or occupant of private property adjacent to a street shall plant any trees, plants, or shrubbery of any nature on the boulevard without first obtaining a line assessment and evacuation permit from the director of roads.
That is so on top of it, though. Like, how long were they there before someone noticed? There's been like an overturned shopping cart 3 streets away and nobody's moved it. But someone puts a tree down. It's
Like, it goes on to explain why, and I understood it because, like, if you just take it from a certain area
mm,
and you don't technically put it in like isolation first, you could bring new like bugs or whatever to that environment that isn't there and that can mess with the
ecosystem
whatever.
of
Yeah, like
yeah.
I understand it, but it's just what.
It's a weird way to go about it. Like, it's
Well, it was just great because for a whole month I kept seeing these holes and I was like, why the hell are there holes there? And then I see the newsletter and I'm like, oh my God, this is the most awesome thing I've ever read in anything. Someone printed this out and sent it to everyone.
I love the fact that someone had to write that. Like, someone had to sit down and go, "There's rules on this, right, guys?" Like,
Oh, the
I've
best
seen
part
trees.
is that someone was like, I want to make my neighborhood look pretty while I'm stuck at home.
Yes.
And then a different person was like, I'm reporting this. Get these trees out of here.
Such a conflict of, yeah, I'm gonna make things nice. It's like, no, fuck trees and fuck everything to do with them. How dare you put that there? It's such, I don't know. Like, I feel like that comes into rolling back to zines. I feel like that's the thing which gets in zines as well. Like,
Mm,
you end up meeting people who think there are rules for making a
mm.
zine or rules on doing that. I mean, we kind of touched towards it when we were saying like you can't charge too much for it.
Like you
Well,
can,
yeah,
and you can still call it a zine, but like it becomes just like a different subgenre
yeah.
from
It's
like the
not
main.
like a general zeitgeist zine, which is just like out into the world. What are you drinking, by the way?
Grapefruit beer.
Grapefruit. Yeah. Hmm. I thought it was
Yeah.
sake at first. Like it's only like a really thin ball.
No.
Mm.
It's it's Stiegel Radler brand, and I just like the taste of theirs the best. I think it's like an extra light Belgian beer. It says 50% beer and 50% juice.
50% beer and juice. That's
Yeah, it's only 2.5% alcohol. I just like the
that's
taste.
interesting.
I don't really like the taste of beer.
I think the
Or
closest
beer.
I've had to that is like when you get, I think it's in the UK, it's called Black Velvet,
Mm,
and where you
okay.
mix cider and blackcurrant juice.
Yeah, no.
And that's strange. But yeah, back to the point. You're saying, like, I always find it strange when you kind of meet people as well who, like, I've met people who told me what you can and cannot make zines about.
And I've never done that. Anytime I go to explain zines to someone, I'm like, you could just have a fucking like elastic band with words on it, and if you call that a zine, it's a zine.
Oh, I could make that zine. Make that zine.
Like get one of those like huge elastic thick bands for like file folders and just write a little
you
thing
put
on
them
it.
into a ball, and then you let people just peel off one at a time, and then they take it away with them, and you instantly made a new trend.
What about half, like partially paper mache, but like not fully, so you could peel things off?
That could be interesting. I know a friend of mine, Sue's she made one out of what is it? You know, like baking clay. So it's like a clay zine.
Oh yeah, I've seen a few people do that.
I was
That's
like,
cool.
that's weird. It's like it kind of makes me want to make like a zine which would last forever out of like rubber, and just
Rubber
like,
doesn't last forever.
but just something which would ruin the ocean essentially, like the complete answer. Like, you know, you make a lot of zines which are about environment, but it's like, yes, but mine is toxic.
Straws. But
Yes.
mine is toxic.
Just like, it's toxic, guys. Just it kills turtles.
The amount of people who have made zines protesting that, like, please save the planet and the animals, and you're like, no, toxic. Put it in a turtle's nose.
It comes in like a little baggie and like a little warning label on it, and you have to wear gloves to handle it, otherwise you get sick.
I actually wanted to, like, I've had a zine. I've probably had like 3 zines on my back burner for a long time. Like one that I'm like slowly working on. By slowly, I mean like I do like a page or 2 and then like put it down, never touch it again. But one of them I have like all the information written down. I just need to like put it into a zine form.
Okay.
And it's about toxic shame.
Okay.
Just like what it means, how it comes about, and like how it affects you. And I've always wanted to put it in like a biohazard bag that has like a little pocket on the outside, so you can like put like an insert of like information on it too. Yeah. And like I wanted to get like hardcore like biohazard labels, but it's just like I don't have this much money for like something that no one's gonna buy. But I don't want to just make it myself, because I want one of those like actual official ones where it's just like, this is like nylon tag. Like, whoa.
One of those ones like when you seal it, you could never reopen without damaging it. And like, though, as soon as you said that, all I could think of was like if you took like old bean cans and then made little barrels, you could fill them with little like toxic zines and then put like nuclear logos on the side.
Do they actually have to be toxic, or can we just pretend they're toxic and share them with people?
I mean, if I was making them, it'd probably just hurt you.
Because you could always just get your napkin zines and like roll them up and put them in like a slightly dirty can. So like when they pull it out, it actually has like moldy food stains on it, but like it won't actually harm them, but they could consume the zine and then just toss it. You're welcome.
You could make a living zine.
Apparently,
you could put it in like a little barrel with like an algae substance. So then when you pull it out, it's slightly deteriorated, but it would continue to grow because of the algae. I feel like these are the kind of zines I can't transport country to country, which does present a problem, but not a huge problem.
It's reminding me of the first zine fair I went to. The person that I was like sharing a table with, him and his brother were like super fun people, and like I'm so glad that they were like my table mates. And like anytime something happens in Calgary, they always like let me know about it just in case. But they were telling me how there is a garbage subscription box that they had heard about, and I was like, who would pay money for that? But he's like, well, I guess if it was a cool piece of garbage. And like, I remember I was like, oh my God. And I saved that and I put it in a zine. So it'd be forever quoted, because even without context, it's just like, well, if it's a cool piece of garbage.
Yeah. I'm one of those people like I hear a ridiculous idea like that, and then 2 seconds later I realize that I'm the kind of person who would probably buy that. And I don't know if I hate myself a little bit for it, or where I'm like, no, I'm kind of proud. I recognized that I would probably pay for that. I know myself that way.
I actually kind of have one that's sort of like that, but it's not quite as garbagey as we're currently talking about.
We've got like a weird level of surreal. I could see you in your mirror.
So I have this zine. I've never opened it, but there's like an online version that has like all the words in it printed out. Okay. But it looks like a packaging of meat.
Okay. I like that.
It says it's called Contemporary Meat by Sacha Archer.
Nice.
And like it's supposed to be like that kind of thing we're talking about. It's like a disposable thing. Like once I open this, it will no longer be this, you know? Yes. Like it's the way it's wrapped. How long have you had that? I got it at the first zine fair. I went to Zine. I think it was October 2018.
Okay.
Yes, it was printed in July 2018. But like the words on here, it repeatedly says name redacted in brackets. It's like name redacted, lives in southwestern Washington state on the Long Beach Peninsula and co-publishes name redacted with name redacted. He is the author of Name Redacted. 900 pages, 2 volumes from Name Redacted, address redacted, $100 plus shipping and handling. His work has appeared in Name Redacted, Name Redacted, Name Redacted, Name Redacted, Name Redacted. And it was just like, it's the most interesting kind of like, I was like, I need to have this in my life. Like it's a piece of art that if you ever do decide to consume it, it will no longer be what it originally looked like.
Yeah, you've altered it by opening it. And you can't go back once you've done that.
I thought that was so cool. And like, I feel like I was just reminded of this when.
Yeah.
By the way, anyone watching this is from theblastedtree.com. He does publishing of zines in Calgary. Yeah. He helps like design and like makes them by hand. They're usually pretty cool.
That's interesting as well. Like you mentioned maybe 3 or 4 different like male zine makers. And whenever I go to UK fairs,
it's always females.
Like 99% of female zines. And I always find that incredibly interesting of the people who go to those events, but then the amount of zines which are also made and never make it to those events. But again, I think that's different ways of different demographics.
Yeah, like I think there's a lot of people who are male and make zines, but they're just not as prevalent in the community because a lot of the community, or at least recently it seems, is either like just minorities. So it's like if you're like female or like LGBTQ plus or colored, like that usually gets more so. So if you're just like a white man that's just talking about your life with like nothing controversial, like people don't really.
I can understand that. I think it's one of those things of if like say if I tell a story about my life, it's like, well, we've heard this 1,000 million times over because that's been most of media forever. Because you're just like a random white guy, and I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. You know, it's I completely get that it's not necessarily for me those kinds of events. I do like I love going to those events, and I don't think I've filled out an application form for any of them which hasn't had that tagline at the bottom, which is people with disabilities, LGBT, etc. will be given priority. And I always see it, and I'm like, yeah, you know, I completely understand that. But it's always interesting to see kind of the minority of. I mean, I've never met kind of like a person of color who's male at a zine fair. I've met lots of black women, but I've not met a black man. And I was like, this is interesting. And I don't know if that, again, I don't know if that's the UK being what the UK is, and the cities which I've been to. But it's always interesting to see the different in-betweens.
I want to say yes, but at the same time, I actually can't see anything in my head, so I don't remember.
That's fair. I don't know. What is? I mean, I've had the experience of attending a zine fair, and then someone looked me up on Instagram and told me that I shouldn't be making zines. That was an incredibly interesting experience. But again, like it comes down to people making rules about what is essentially an art form. But,
yeah, that's kind of one of the things that like whenever I come across that, I just go like and walk away because I have so many things that I want to say, but I don't feel like my voice would be welcomed. Because so what if you're a white man? You also deserve to be able to have someone listen to you and be able to share your story. Because just because you're a white man doesn't mean you've never gone through anything horrible.
yeah.
It's kind of like
Until I make my toxic zine, which hurts people. That's the most white man zine I could ever make.
toxic.
The one which harms the environment
Poisonous.
and hurts people.
It's just, yeah.
If I could find a way to take money away from minorities whilst doing it, I'll have
Oh my
cracked
god.
the code.
Oh my goodness. That'd be. You know
Like,
what? They probably did do that. That probably did exist like 200 years ago.
probably.
Small publications that harmed the environment and took money away from the people who needed it most. Like, oh my God, yes,
Yeah.
that existed.
I mean, that's essentially just propaganda, right? Like,
yeah.
Like just make small propagandas. Got to play into my wheelhouse of what I'm expected to make. You see, yeah. But you recently made stickers as part of a Kickstarter. Was that like the first Kickstarter you've done?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. How did it go compared to expectation and whatnot? Like, because I think it's such a weird platform. I find Kickstarter. There's like such a mix nowadays. Like when it first started, it was very grassroots, very fund these projects, and now whenever I go on there, it's just full of like Chinese companies offering me tech I don't need, and board games which I'm never going to play, and I'm just going to sit in a cupboard. I'm like, what do I do?
So when I was setting it up, I already knew approximately how much money it would cost, and I think the amount of money that I set for the goal on the Kickstarter was like only 20% of that, because I was like, I don't think anyone's going to fund this, but like a small amount of funding would help me get like a little bit of it versus like put it, because it's like all or nothing.
Yeah.
So if I put a higher goal and it doesn't get reached, then whatever, like I wouldn't get anything, nothing would happen of it. But if I got like a small portion, then at least that was something. It actually did significantly better than I even thought. Like I didn't even think I would get. I think my goal was like 150, and I didn't even think that I would get that.
Yeah, it was good. It was good to see. Like I think, like I mean, I sometimes not forget, but I'm aware that I like essentially fund my art habit is the way I put it. Is like a lot of people spend money on like a lot of drinks, or they go like do whatever, and I'm like, no, I spend like 50 quid a month on random art projects which don't make me any money. Like that's what I do. So it's always kind of cool to see little projects kind of like pop up on Kickstarter and be like, yeah, we're funding some stickers, get some stickers. And I thought they were cool. Cool little thing. How many countries did you manage to hit like with that? Because I feel like watching your kind of like social stuff, you have quite a few different people in different places who are interested in your work.
I don't remember. I know there's some Canada, some US, Australia, and the UK. But I feel like there was another person that was like outside of that, but I don't remember.
Really,
I like just made it too.
I really want to get into like Japanese zines.
Yes. And like, but it's so awkward to be like,
Yeah.
hey, 5 o'clock zines, can you just go to the zine store and buy me a pile and I'll pay you for them and just mail them to me, please? Because I don't understand any of these websites. What are they saying?
It's like, it's right out there. It's right on the edge. And you're like, this is so inaccessible to me. I'd have to
like,
learn a language to be able to
but
even...
sometimes they make them in English.
Oh. That's what 5 o'clock Zine should do. He should just have his store of Japanese zine.
Well, because you know how there's like a personal shopper, but of Japanese zines.
Okay, yeah.
Because like, it's like, I want $15 of art zines and $10 of per zines. Here's some money. I'll pay for shipping. You go pick them out.
That's such a crazy idea. It would work so well.
Craig, here's an idea for you.
If you're watching this,
yeah,
go. Yeah. But two people who would definitely spend money on getting Japanese zines over to their countries.
They're so inaccessible.
It is. I feel like there's a lot of countries that like, because I mean, I knew zines were a thing. I knew they were big because in the 80s in the UK because of the music scenes and stuff like that, and like I knew the US made it big. I was kind of surprised, like Canada had the zine scene it did.
Yeah, I didn't think it did. I'd say it's mainly in Vancouver or Toronto. There's not much elsewhere besides that. Like, I'm pretty sure in those two cities there are actual like stores that have lots of zines.
And then in Calgary there's a little pocket which is they're just making zines in Calgary.
Well, there's like a what's the word? A consignment like bookstore.
Okay.
Where you can also drop off zines. And I know like one of the comic book stores has like zines too, but it's mainly like comic book zines, but you can still drop them off on consignment.
That's pretty cool. I get a lot of...
It's like a thing, but not really big.
Yeah. I get a lot of hits when I look on like the analytics of websites from France as well. And there's like, and it kind of, I know France has like a long history of small comics, like really small comic magazines. And it just makes me really want to explore other countries' zines and to find out what they call it. And if they're aware of zines as a kind of like a medium or whether it's like something completely different. Because especially like going back to Japan, like I know they got into a lot of what was the punk culture. And the DIY stuff, but because of the formality of Japan, it also is very hidden. And I'm like, it's still kind of edgy down there. Whereas here, it's just like we make zines.
They actually have like a few stores there. There's at least one in Tokyo, I believe, where it's like the whole store is just zines. Yeah. It's like a whole store of zines. Craig, go there and buy the stuff.
Maybe I should get him on the podcast next. We could do like
Have you heard of what is it, like Small Volcano Distro? I think it is.
Small Volcano Distro. I have not.
I think it's that. It's either that or Sticky. I don't know. There's one of the distros in Australia. You just pay them like $20 and they put all those like free zines in a bag and like they ship you whatever it costs for like $20 of shipping.
That's interesting. That's dangerous as well. Like,
yeah, there's so many people who do those like weekly, just like updating their life kind of zines.
Like diary zines.
Yeah, but it's like a free one that they just print out and like give out. And like, have you heard of You?
No, I don't know me.
Funny joke.
Sorry, I can't avoid a pun. That's right there. I don't know. I think, yeah, there's just a whole untapped world of zine.
Sometimes when I'm on Etsy and like I come across someone who's had 0 sales, I feel, and if they don't have like the $20 shipping, I'm like, I'll just buy a copy.
Yeah,
it's like regardless of what the topic is, like I haven't done it in a while, but it's just like
it's
a way to get them into the community, because sometimes if they haven't had a sale, it's because they don't have anyone in the community that they know.
Yeah, I find that quite a lot of people reaching out saying they don't know, like they can't attend a zine event, or they can't do this, that, and the other. Which is, in a way, why I found it so interesting that we kind of got in touch via Reddit. Which is, it's like both of us just looked at and went, okay, we need a way to spread this. What's the most accessible forum I have? Reddit. And then when people come to me and they ask, like, what should I do with them once I've made them? And it's like, well, either give them to your friends or different art groups, or just put them online. Get them out there, offer trades, and people will be all over it. But it'd be interesting, I think, to see, especially, I mean, I think during, obviously, countries going through lockdown, I'm dreading the amount of media which comes down of lockdown zines and isolation zines. I'm like, yes, I understand we all went through this thing, but at the same time, there are other subjects. But I do feel like there's about to be an abundance of zine things.
Yeah.
It could kind of push a little bit. It'd be interesting to see what happens with it. Would you have plans for upcoming zines?
Yeah.
You don't have to tell me about them.
I've been slowly, very, very slowly working on Sometimes Human Issue for like a year and a half or something. I just,
takes time.
I don't know. A lot of the time I convince myself that no one cares what I have to say, which, like, anyone who knows me, they always go like, oh, that's not true. Mm-hmm. But regardless of if it's true or not, my brain's still whispering it. And so then I'm like, do I even have to say this? Like, no one's going to read this. What's the point? But that isn't really initially why I started making zines. It's just, I like to make zines because otherwise I won't express myself otherwise. Mm-hmm. And my whole point was, even if no one likes it, if it helps one person who's going through something similar, it's kind of what you were saying in the one thing, that like art is a form of manipulation, that like the moment you try and create something, you like think about how to create it for someone else. But it's like, if you're expressing yourself, how is that you expressing yourself?
Yeah. It's hard to find a pure way of expressing yourself, because everything's slightly changed. I think that's what I liked about kind of getting into your zines, was because you look at yourself so closely, and then you still actually go through with it in the end. It's kind of, you read so much of it and you're like, I kind of think,
you're like, how did she say this?
I kind of got to the end of it. I was like, the fact that you got to the end of it and you produced it, like that's what makes it interesting, and that's what's so good about it, because you're like, you've gone through all this thought process, and essentially you've given us the thought process which it took to get through it, which is fantastic. And as you say, getting into making zines for helping people, that's a great way of doing it. Just express yourself.
The craziest thing is like almost everything I make, I hate and I don't think it's good, but I still release it anyways. And then everyone else is like, oh my God, this is amazing. I'm like, is it?
I think that's a valuable thing as an artist, though. I think if you lose that, you lose the ability to make good art. Because you get into such a mindset of, well, I'm going to release it, people are going to like it, therefore it's good. And you start to base it on other things, then you detract from the catharsis you got from actually making the art in the first place.
Yeah, like the one thing that I've created that I'm actually like, oh my God, I really like this. It's not for sale. I initially was going to have it for sale, but I'm like, no, this is mine. And now it's just on my wall.
Nice.
No one will ever be able to have it. It's fucking mine. I created something I liked, and it is not for sale. I did mass produce it though, but the original is not for sale. Okay. It's like my the art print.
Okay, yeah, that one. Yep.
This one is a slightly
faded background.
Well, it's spray paint. Mm-hmm. Well, this one's like an edited version though, because I took just like a camera photo of the actual painting.
Yeah.
And the lighting was weird.
Trying to photograph paintings is.
Okay. No, that's BTS. It's on my wall. You can kind of see it there.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
I have a lot of things there.
Your wall's cool.
All of that. You're like, oh my god, why are there dolls?
I was like, this is action, man. Just chilling out. No, I think that's a valuable kind of lesson / insight to round this out on. Whilst you correct your camera. Oh no, yeah, I mean, yeah, I think zines they're one of those things which I think you can do anything with, and I think that's the message I try to give people when they make them or get into them, is that you can do anything with them and try not to set rules for them, and just get them out there as much as possible, because it might be about the actual process of making it rather than actually producing it.
I've tried explaining zines to a few different people that like have created art, and I remember one of them was like, oh no, I could never do that, I'm not a good artist. But it's like, you don't have to be a good artist. You don't, even if you're a bad artist, you can still draw. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to be the best. The whole zine is just about expressing yourself, and it doesn't even matter if you fucking like it or not. If you put it out in the world, that's something.
Definitely. I think that's a good point to end on. Do you think? Yeah? Wasn't bad for an hour, that, was it? Well, thank you for coming, and, well, I say coming, you're like millions of miles around the country.
Millions.
Like that
Holy
direction.
Shit.
Depends which way around you go, I guess.
Well, I'd have to leave that way.
Yeah. You don't have to go direct route. You can go, like...
Oh no, I can't see where I am. It feels like it's different. I spent so much time having my camera be in a specific place, and now I'm like, this isn't.
And then you moved it to show us the wall, and then it went. Well. But no, thank you for coming, and thank you for chatting to me. It's been lovely to talk to you all. And, yeah, I think we'll call that there. Thank you, Crash. Magic. I will stop recording, and that will be